So ChatGPT, if we compare the input, you already notice that the input is different. When we look back, we had just a Google search, so we could only put in something we're searching for. ChatGPT is not exactly the same. We can do a search. You see, we still have search. But we can also put in a pre-existing writing. We can also put in pre-existing code. And we can also put in what I would call a creative discovery search. So it's kind of taking the parameters or the words you use, and it can do things with that result. So it's not necessarily a search, but what it's actually doing is producing something from the words you give it. So if you give it 3 words, snowman, carrot, and rocks, and you say, do something with these 3 words, write a story with these 3 words, it'll create something brand new. So that's not the same thing as a search that's trying to return a link that's on the internet. It's actually creating something from scratch using the knowledge that it has. So if we look at a basic example, this is what a basic search would be, but there are some differences compared to a Google search. So here we're putting in a search. Give me 10 movie titles that are similar to Good Will Hunting. And so the output of that ChatGPT gave us is these movies here, Dead Poet Society, Beautiful Mind, different movies like that. And the difference is now to point out, ChatGPT has short-term memory. It can remember the conversation you had. So it's like talking to a person. So if you say, well, what is the plot of number 3? And if we look at number 3, it's Rain Man. So it's going to remember. It's remembering the context of the conversation like a human would. And it can expand on this information that it gave us. So actually what it's doing is unpacking this data for more information, which is really, really interesting if you think about it, because it's presenting us with an initial information, but we can expand that data. And it really you want to think of this text as data. You can expand it or you can compress it. So you could actually summarize information. So this is kind of what it gave us on the second prompt here. What is the plot? It gave us all of this information. But we could actually summarize. We could take this text and we could say, can you summarize the text you just gave me into something a little bit shorter? Or can you be a little bit more descriptive in the plot? Or can you give us a longer version of that text? So we can manipulate the output that it gives us, and we can interact with it just like as you would with a human. So this is why people say ChatGPT has some sort of level of intelligence, and it's actually passed the bar exam. So it's actually fairly intelligent in the comprehension and responses it can give. And so I like to think of this as not just a search engine, but an assistant. Think of it as a person basically, and interact with it in that way, and you're going to get the best results. So here we have another example of ChatGPT, but we're not using a search this time. So you remember I said we can use different types of initial data input into it. So here we have a writing that already exists. So this is from Wikipedia. And I said, rewrite this so a 5-year-old can understand it. And I pasted in this text here. So before I continue here, it's basically just this. We have our window here. Rewrite this so a 5-year-old can understand it. And I put semicolon and basically go to this Wikipedia page, copy this, and just paste it in. So it's going to understand, even though the formatting is not perfect and all that. If I just press that, it's going to basically do what we're asking. So it's intelligent. It's going to kind of understand what you're trying to explain with natural language. So what's interesting about this is we have this simplified version, and it did a pretty good job. It's nuclear fusion is a way to make energy by combining 2 types of atoms together. Happens in stars, and it can make a lot of energy. So the language is not too complex. It does have the elements in here still, so hydrogen, helium, stuff like that. If we didn't want to include those things, and we assume that the reader maybe doesn't understand those concepts yet, we could say, hey, can we make it a little bit simpler, and can we exclude these type of words? So again, remember that we can iterate on the output. We can make it longer, shorter, more creative, more formal. Those are the kind of things you can do. And when we get into emails and marketing and stuff like that, those are pretty useful things to remember. So these are just some general broad concepts, but it's important to know that this is not just your result and you're done. So just remember that. And this is a good example, though, of compression or decompression, meaning we can simplify or expand. And that's something to keep in mind.